people activity. R.E.V.A.M.P. It's an acronym. Dr. Neely Fuller, in his compensatory compendium, which is a workbook. If you really sit and study and you look at it, it's a workbook. And if you want anyone looking on or listening in that needs to get a good grasp of it, there's a series that our Basesh did. I think it was called The Pieces of the Puzzle, where he went through that. Yeah, exactly. So we did about 5 sessions on it. You can look at that. But what we need to do is organize ourselves in those 9 areas of people activity. Now, I started off speaking about the internal environment, and here am I talking over the 9 areas of people activity. Let me explain how those two are linked. First, we have the religion. And religion is first because religion defines your culture. Religion tells you when to get up, when to go to bed, what to eat, what to wear, what you listen to. It dictates when you get married. It dictates how you get married. It dictates your children's birthing ceremony. And it dictates your last rites, that burial ceremony. So religion is the first aspect. Now, because we were speaking of that internal environment is bathed in nutrients, in elements and materials. And if you are going according to your culture and you get that R correct, then your internal environment is correct. You're going to know to guise your food so that you don't keep getting internal parasites, which hijacked your hormones. Dr. Tucker, Dr. Ford, sorry if I can't remember all the speakers from the first session, spoke about hormones. And hormones are chemical messengers within the body, and they work over a long period of time. But how do we get these chemical messengers? Your body produces these chemical messages. How? Through what goes in, through, and around you. Nutrients, vitamins, minerals, all of those help to give you that hormonal balance. So if that balance is off, you're going to be thinking off. You will not be in your right mind. If you're eating foods, if you're living a way that's detrimental to your culture. So that's why the R is first in this acronym, R.E.V.A.M.P. So that's how we affect, infect, and effect the environment which we live in. And each of us becomes a beacon for what we need in order to navigate the environment.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. My brother, Stephen Starley.
I just want to thank the great doctor for sharing that aspect of the environment. I would like to say again, to feed on from what you're saying, the blood is literally the river of life. That's why every time they're looking at your blood pressure, they're looking at your blood cholesterol, they're looking at your blood viscosity, the thickness of your blood, or they're going to check your blood volume, or they'll check your blood quality or blood efficiency. So the blood is literally reaching every cell all the time, nourishing, repairing, correcting, healing. Now, we become unwell in our internal environment because of deficiency, because of dehydration. 70% of our body is actually water, okay, approximately that. And if you look at the external environment, the planet we live on, 70% of it is water. So there's a key element that there is a message within that water that moves cells, moves tissues, moves different communications. What I'm trying to get at here is that we have to really look at the fact that what makes us become unwell is poor internal environment or deficiency or a sense of imbalance or a sense of overactive organs or underactive organs. But again, the environment is being set by the Creator in such a way that it runs on systems. So there's a system within us that is divine, and it is running our systems in an automated, exact manner. Now, when there's something happens in the internal environment that goes out of sync or out of balance, then we get a problem. Now, we have an internal problem because of what they call deficiency or imbalance. But then if you look at our external environment, which is where we're living on the planet, there is a war going on against every area. There's a war on education. There is a war on what we call our food. There is a war that is taking place on our living space in terms of the air that we breathe in. There is a war taking place in the very chemtrails they spray on us. There's a war taking place in terms of the vaccines we're being forced to take, get on a flight. Everything, our children are under what they call a miseducation war. And every area of that environment speaks in one thing. It creates dysfunction. It creates imbalance. It creates a sense of what we call a lack of what we call being able to identify in this plane of existence. Now, going back to what I would say is our environment, we are a product of our environment. Our great ancestors always said to us one thing: let your food be your medicine and your medicine be your food. Why do I bring it down food? Because we have to live to eat or eat to live at some level. But the best thing is to what we call eat to live. Okay, and if we're in a state of eating to live, we have to remember that whatever we're putting into that internal environment changes the state of that environment. So it creates a state of being. Now, this means that at some level, our cells are constantly communicating with the food that we take in, and it creates and builds us, builds our bodies into who we become. What happens when we're taking in food that is already made from a toxic environment, covered with pesticides, herbicides, all these things? Then the environment from the outside goes into the internal environment and also damages it because of what we call poor feeding or poor foods or refined foods or things. So we change that internal environment. And we may say, what has this got to do with the epigenetics and things? Well, you are what you eat. Okay. So one of the things it comes back down to is that if we want to resurrect, if we want to liberate ourselves, if we want to ascend out of this system of control and regulation and deep, what we call prison planet that has been foisted on us as African people, what the system has done, it has put what we call a chain on our subconscious mind. And we no longer have physical chains. We're no longer colonized, but we seem to be caught up in an environment that doesn't favor us at any point in time, not while we're growing up, not while we're in the older age, not while we're in the middle age. So it means that we are being doomed into what we call a state of total control and what I call moving ourselves into digital slavery. And this is why today most of us sometimes have given up. And when our children look at us and say, well, you're not saying anything, you can't say anything to us because you're not doing anything. So the environment is key for us in terms of our healing, in terms of restoration, in terms of really emancipation, in terms of really reawakening ourselves. We've got to really know how to begin to tune in to that inner doctor, because all healing that we'll ever have comes from within. There's no healing coming from outside. And when we tap into that inner aspect of who we are, we'll be able to actually awaken that genetic God gene, if you call it, or goddess gene within us, that will be able to tune in to that great I am presence that will awaken us to our true nature, which is being one with the one who put everything into motion. And that's where the true emancipation is going to come from. Healing is part of the journey and is a process. But we also have to realize that the environment we're in is becoming toxic every day because there is a depopulation campaign that has been put in place, foisted on us in our environment. Okay, we can't change that. It is happening every day. Millions of us are being castrated and killed off in operations and all kinds of things. But our environment is become toxic to us because we're not organizing ourselves. It was the great Marcus Garvey said, organize or perish. Right now, we're perishing by the millions because we can't organize our environment.
Thank you, my brother. I'll pass you over to Pastor Ineas.
So to add to what was said, which are very powerful statements made by our the fellow panelists. What I'll say is what our Basesh, Rev. Dr. R.E.V.A.M.P has said to us continuously. It is what the great Baba Ankh Anatun said to his people during his day and time over 3,500 years ago. We must separate and do for ourselves. In order for us to control the environment, we must separate from the environment, as our last speaker just said, it's poisoning us. No matter how much we try to bring forth the elements that are necessary for us to thrive, once we're in this cesspool of an environment that requires us to live by their standards in order to survive, in order to just function, in order to be seen as legal even. As long as we stay in this environment in a perpetual way, we will continue to be poisoned and we will continue to epigenetically be undermined.
That's right.
Because the DNA, as we have said, is not, the code is not changing as much as the environment is not allowing that code to fully express itself, or it is causing that code to express itself in a way that causes us to undermine ourselves. This is nothing new. We see this in scripture where even the prophets, they were saying that these people are a rebellious people. Ezekiel 12 talks about, hey, you are in a house of a rebellious people. These people don't want to actually do by and for themselves. They want to live like the beast. They
Yes.
want to function in a way that causes them to feel as if they're in the know. They're in the popular or a way of life that ultimately makes them seem important to this society. Yes. So we look at those who had to deal with similar circumstances, and ultimately we realized that there was not much that they could do staying in that environment. Akhenaten had to move out of Thebes, get out, get the people out, and build an entire new city.
That's right.
This Amirna, this Akhet Aten, this space where we could now focus on what it is that we needed to create the environments. Because we were talking about the fact that the foods that we eat create the hormones, and then the hormones ultimately are the messengers, and these messengers ultimately create the environment necessary for us to be able to function. But in order to have those hormones be produced, we got to have the right foods. In order to have the right foods, you got to have your land. In order to have your land, you got to get out of his land. Doesn't mean that we won't have one foot in this land. We talk about this aliyah, this ability to go back and forth.
That's
But
right.
we'll have our land to ultimately gain the strength that we need to go back into his land and get the people out of there that want to actually hear what we have to say. But it's difficult to do that while we're still in that space. We got to separate
That's right.
and do for ourselves.
Amen.
My brother, as you was just saying, because you emphasized on separation. You emphasized that we got to separate, and yet everywhere on the planet that we go, the Canaanite, the European, the Arabicide, they've touched literally every corner. So when you're saying separate, how are we going to separate ourselves by still being in under or around him? If you understand the question, I'm just
Okay, well,
no, I'm friendly. I'm coming to you. Don't worry. I'm
Yeah,
staying with you, my brother.
the planet is working with us. The Canaanite can't take the heat like we can. So as it gets hotter, they're running into the caves. They're getting away from those areas that they can no longer thrive in, which gives us the opportunity to actually inhabit those spaces where they can no longer thrive. Their numbers are dwindling. They create a media space that makes it seem as if they're everywhere. They cannot be found. Their system is everywhere. I agree with that. But I understand too that they cannot take the environment that the planet is now ultimately producing, whereby the sun's rays are causing them to either get the skin cancer or get the diseases that is going to cause them to actually be moved out of the way. They going into back to the caves. We need to get to the point where we now eat the foods and drink the water as our forgive me, I didn't get the name, but the water that we need to actually consume, the foods that we actually need to consume, it allows for us to actually be in the environment that the Canaanite can't be in.
That's right.
And so if we have the lands that we're going to be in the spaces where he can actually function, then that gets him away from us and we can get out of the way.
I'm coming to you, Dr. Chase. I'm just skipping for a reason, because my brother, he was living in England and he's now gone to Uganda. Would you say that's sort of what you're doing right now?
After living here for quite a while, I realized one thing, You can only live in a land that is not your own for a season. Okay, and the reason why I say that, yes, I wasn't born here. I was born in Uganda, but what I realized there is when you are actually born in a certain environment that is your own environment, it actually molds you. As I said, the environment molds you and into who you become. I've realized that for many seasons, somebody was talking about the Eurocentric mind. We have not only been given that, but we've been our very DNA has been now modeled and across that. So what I realize is that when I'm there in Uganda, it's a totally different environment. I see my people. I see how they look like. They look like me, and I look like them. And I look at them, and I realize the people in the banks, the people in the driving, everything, they will look like it. And there's the essence of racism does not raise it exactly at any point in time. There's nobody being racist to you out there, and you feel good. And literally, there's so much love because our people are our people. Okay, they don't have this thing, oh, racism, racism. Now, what is happening is that we in the diaspora, because I was in the diaspora for, we also have to realize one thing is that the journey for us right now is about reunification. Okay, because that is the only way we're going to change our environment that we're living in mentally, physically, and spiritually. We have to realize that we are a spiritual people first and foremost. We have to regain our spiritual unity with our ancestors, which already we were one with them already. We just have to now realize that this is not about them and us. So, in the past, they used to separate the African from the Caribbean, the Caribbean from the African American. There was always, everybody wasn't talking to each other. But now we've realized one thing. That was by design with the Willie Lynch syndrome. That was by design with people who created racism, created separation, divide and rule. Now that environment is not as we've managed to overcome that as African people. But what have they done next? They've now programmed the future of digital slavery, which is now going to get AI to now control things on the system base. So the environment is going to change. You and I, my brother, will not be able to operate with a machine that has been programmed against you and I. So the environment will be different. Just like we're online right now, but this time is going to come when access will be denied just because of the fact that the AI machine doesn't recognize you and your nose is broad and so we will be in a situation where we've got to think clearly. If we're going to emancipate ourselves, we've got to have to think beyond this by realizing that we've got to create our own system. We've got to unify completely in a way where there is a unified approach. Now, how is that going to happen? Because now we've got what we call a limited time. The depopulation program is real, okay? And we have to realize that for the Eurocentric mind is the main goal. Everything it does, whether it's the food, the food environment which you have to rely on, whether it is basically the system is using to keep you out of the system, whether it's deprivation of jobs and everything, whether it's a sense of really understanding that you as a person can no longer be able to create your language or sense of self because it's literally whitewashed us into non-existence. We can't speak our original languages. We can't have the original way of living. When we look at a city in Africa, when it's designed with that Eurocentric mind, we also look and say, that's a modern city now. But we don't even know how our cities would look if we had been taken into captivity and taken into enslavement. So we have to look at the environment we're living in right now as literally now we are recreating ourselves in his image and his likeness, not in our original African image and likeness based on what our ancestors would have been if we're actually allowed to be in that place of peace. But we've been disrupted, and I understand that, but we also need to reawaken ourselves to our true self.
I want to stop you and I want to go to Dr. Chase at this point. Because at this point where he left Dr. Chase, I know you want to close it up. Go.
Okay, first of all, to my Ugandan brother, Karabunis Musa. Karabuni Musi.
Sadisana.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay,
Karabuni.
now, part of the environment, you see, Romans chapter 12, verse 2 says, and be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind.
That's right.
In Proverbs chapter 7, it says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So the first step, the first stage, before we physically move away, before we really start to separate ourselves, we need to get this right. And that's why we have revamp. We need to get the mind right. You see, Basash taught me something. Where the mind goes, the
Right.
body follows.
Right.
Yeah, all of his students here can repeat.
Mhm.
Where the mind goes, the body follows.
Yes.
So if we do not get this mind, and let me stick a point there with the word mind. You
Mhm.
see, we have mind
Mhm.
and we have mine.
Mm.
We have mind, the noun,
Mhm.
which speaks about the thinking apparatus where you get your will, and we have mind, the verb, which means to take precaution, which means to look at cautiously. And then we have mine, M-I-N-E.
Mhm.
We have the landmine, explosions. Yeah. We have mine, which means to dig the foundations of, to disrupt, as into lay siege. So we need to be careful with this mind and what is being mined, and we need to mine our mind for the jewels of our soul. So getting this mind correct is the first step into removing yourself, into separating yourself. Revelation chapter 18, verse 3 says, come
Out of
out
her.
of her.
Mhm.
Come out. But all of us can't just pick up en masse and walk across to a piece. This is not Jim Jones. If one thing I know about my Basash, this is not Jim Jones, and we ain't going Guyana.
No.
Let's just get that straight. Right? We're not going to be drinking no Kool-Aid.
No.
As a matter of fact, Basash is not going to endorse Kool-Aid. We drink spring water first.
Mhm.
But anyhow, we're not going to all get up and move en masse, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. It's not going to work. How are you going to sustain yourself? Are you going to take your same outmoded, crazy habits to the continent or to whichever area you create? No. You need to get your mind correct first. And this is so interesting because Liberia was established as a colony. Well, not a colony, that's the wrong word, but for want of a better word, for those who were in the US that wanted to return, that had this longing for home. Unfortunately, when the settlers, when they were actually given a little island off the coast of Monrovia, but eventually they went there and they started doing to the people
It was done to them.
what was done to them. They started raping people and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So no, Marcus Garvey said, if you're no good in the West, we can't, you're going to be no good on the continent. So we need
Oh,
to get this mind right first. How do we get this mind right? Sankofa, return to our culture, return to our values, return to the etiquettes of nobility. If this appeals to you, come on and join us. Be an active part. Don't just come, okay, yes, they said the great doomsday is coming. No, we don't sit down and wait for doomsday. We're not noun people, we're verb people. We're action takers. You know, okay, I'm waiting for great God of the sky. We don't believe in that nonsense here. We don't do that. And from all the speakers, those that are atonists and those that are non-atonists that spoke today, you realize that we are all verb people. We keep that action because when you move, you create electricity. You create that energy. So we keep moving. But before we start to physically move, before we even make that conscious decision to get our internal environment right, we must be transformed. Trans, to move across. Trans, come out of it. No, not that kind of trans. We don't do that here. Trans, come out of her. Before we transform, we have to renew the mind. Take it away.
Okay, we're wrapping it up now. But so what I really just want from everybody, I just want you to say your farewells and just say the thing that you feel people need to hear before we leave.
Um, it's all about the mindset. The mindset is going to be key in terms of our, as my sister said, the mindset is where we are right now. The chains are no longer on us. It's just that right now, the time is about really renewing of the mind and also creating the right mental environment, the right emotional environment, the right spiritual environment to align ourselves with who we really are and to also remember our greatness. And I think once we do that, we will be able to begin the journey of ascension and transformation and resurrection of who we are.
Dr. Chase.
I have this book here, and I have the privilege and distinction of knowing the author. And I'll leave the group with this thought. Been mothered before. I've been mothered before, been across the burning sands, and I've lived in times and lands 3 or 4,000 score ago. You can't tell by my math, but these pyramids prove that I've been mothered before. Didn't learn all that I'm saying in one short score, because every time I come back, I pick up more and more. The reason why I can't become technology is because technology is inside of me. Hooptech Technologies, that is. I've been mothered before. And when you tell me that I'm wrong, look within and ask yourself, am I sure? Maybe this sister's right. And I too was once here, there, and have been mothered before. A different name and temple wherein I dwell. But every time I come back, it seems more and more like hell. Won't be coming back forever, because this physical, after it's conquered, won't be re-entered. I've been mothered before. So listen to what I'm saying, because I'm here, I'm gone, I won't be staying. And this is written by Kahun Anku Sarah. Get the book.
Wow.
Let's hear it from Karan too. Let's go.
I didn't hear what he said just now.
Well, like, you
Oh,
can't
okay.
say that because she read it. So you
I
gotta
know,
say
right?
His words.
Yes, thank you for that. I haven't heard those words in a while. What I want to leave everybody with is the fact that we as a people are out of our minds because we are out of our environment. If we continue to identify with oppression, we will then identify with the behavior that oppression begets. Oppression is ultimately an unnatural condition, and it produces unnatural behavior. And we as a people, because we are not remembering, we've identified with oppression for so long that we are now identifying with the unnatural behavior that oppression begets. And so we must now come together to transform this mind by way of joining organizations like the Holy Coptic Church and others that are here to assist us with being guided. We must be guided. We must have a guide in order to do what it is that we say we're doing. If we all just pick up from this revamp, which is a beautiful annual opportunity for us to kind of get our minds together, if we leave this space without actually having a plan as to how we're going to execute what it is we've talked about, then we're going to continue to move in circles. And so ultimately, let us change our environment so that we can change our mind, transform our environment, transform our mind. Thank you, and namaste.
Namaste. Let me say, and I'm touching the point that you said, we got to get involved with something. We got to be part of something. We cannot sit here and expect it's going to go away, right? So in order to liberate, you've got to do something. But as we said, we first got to feel it in the mind and make it happen. I'm unapologetically an atonist Charastian. I'm a Nazarene. And for me and for those like myself, like-minded people, we've found a way that we know works for us. And we know that, as my brother said, if once we separate and we start to do for self, we start to make sure that we're growing our own foods. We start to make sure that we're raising our own crops. We try to make sure that we're running our own business and supporting each other in every little thing that we do. we will see success. Success is not hard to get as long as you know that you've set your goal and you work towards it. And once we work towards that goal and we set that goal, we will achieve everything we need to achieve in order to start the flame, start that little spark that's going to make others draw towards what we're doing, because we can't do it alone. We need all of us as a people to get involved. But we also know everybody's not going to get involved because there's always the Judas. But they have their ending and we have our beginning. With that, I say namaste. Basesh.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone. The right Pastor Dr. Horace Wright, the beloved brother Stephen Solly, sister, or as we refer to her, Dr. Shirlene Chase, Dr. Cleveland Ninius III, and everyone else. Let me just go through the names. Some of you may have just signed in. I know some people work on the weekends. We had in segment 1, Dr. Dias Tucker from Atlanta, Georgia. We had Mr. Hugh Myers from United Kingdom, Dr. Nicole Ford from Chicago, Illinois, and they dealt with heaven, hell, and hormones, protecting your mental state in a crazy world. Segment 2 was the suicidal mind and how whitewashing kills. That was Associate Pastor Karen Hilton, known as Kahun Tefnut, Sister, Mrs. Rochelle Carrington Hunter, Dr. Rochelle Carrington Hunter. We also had Dr. Nyambi Campbell Dean from Bahamas, Dr. Rochelle Carrington Hunter from Trinidad and Tobago. In segment 3, we dealt with facing psychological pain, the workings of cultural destruction. That was Brother Demarius Freeman, Greenville, South Carolina. Sister Zandia Shanti Malinki from New Jersey, USA. Sister Amanet Hika from Nassau, Bahamas. Sister R.E.V.A.M.P, known also as Miss Diana Powell, Mrs. Diana Powell. And of course, in Egypt, by way of Botswana, Mrs. Ifelui Melimbi. In section 4, I've just told you who they were. And all of these subjects, from why your mind is not your own environment, were based off of the theme of Eurocentric thinking destroying Black psyche. How do we keep intact? How do we keep it intact? What does putting a white mind behind blackface really mean? I wanted to close out, first of all, by thanking all of the members of the Holy Coptic Church of the Black Messiah, all of you who've been pushing this event on your social media platforms, at your jobs, at school, amongst your family and friends, those who attended here, those of you who attended in person in Nassau, Bahamas, those of you who attended in person in Trinidad and Tobago, or in London in the UK, or in Nassau, Bahamas. One of the most important things I'd like to leave everyone with, we talk about epigenetics and we talk about environment and we talk about whitewashing. Your epigenetics, your environment is affected by such. But your environment is not just where you are, it's what you choose to let in. You can change how you feel about yourself, your body, your mind, your consciousness, your goals, your aspirations, your own people, by deciding which programs to watch. Your body functions off of see, hear, taste, smell, and touch. That which you keep looking at, you're going to aspire to be like. Look to the Marimba Annies. Look to the Dr. Amos Wilson. Look to the Francis Cress Wilsons. Look to those look to the Garveys. Look to the Winnie Mandelas. Look to the Nelson Mandela. Look to those who look like you and who cared about you. You only keep watching television. You only keep listening to their programming. All you keep seeing with your physical eyes, what the eyes see, the heart and mind must accept as real. So they've created an illusion, and they've replicated this illusion everywhere, even on the continent. Even on the continent, it is there. Where you may walk into a room of Black people, with a white God on the wall. Where you may walk into a courtroom of black people using the laws given to them by Europe. It happens in the Caribbean, it happens in South America, it happens globally. We have to start looking at blackness, black greatness, black mind, black intent. Putting Africa in its original system, not Africa today or the Caribbean today or Black America today for that matter. Back to that system. We can change our lives, but we got to change what we look at. You keep looking at white, you're going to want to be white. Keep looking at white hair and white dress and white food and keep eating white food, you're going to hate yourself. Eat indigenous food. Learn to cook Native American food. Learn to cook Native Taino, Native South American, Native African. Learn to cook your food. Your food is not chitlins and grits. I know grits taste good, I get it. But that's not all you are. Corn husk, nothing wrong with it. But that's not all you are. Learn to cook foods outside of what they told us to cook. If all you're eating is the poisons that they told you is food, we're gonna keep getting sick and we're gonna keep hating ourselves. If all we keep listening to the music, there's other types of music besides just hip hop. And besides modern R&B. You got old R&B, you got rhythm, you got blues, you got congo, you got merengue, you got salsa, you have music you have vaccine, you got kora, all these things. You have music that transcends time and space. Expand your listening repertoire, expand your playlists. Introduce some music that you may never have listened to. Listen to classical as well, because that's you too. You also. Change what you look at, change what you listen to. Change what you smell. Stop wearing his perfumes. Get some natural oils. Don't let him trick you with his Lace Claiborne whale vomit. It's been added some fragrance to it. Get to natural oils. Get to your natural oils, your natural shea butters. Put his lotions away. Get your shea butters and your natural cocoa butters. What you put on you, what you smell, you will identify with and you'll remember. They keep these things from us because if you ever get back to what you see as yourself, and what you listen to as yourself, and what you smell as your indigenous self, and what you taste and eat as your indigenous self, and what you touch every day in your house, there should be African, Caribbean, Native American statues, pictures, things that remind you of you. If you ever do those things, you will remember who you are. Your greatness will come through from you at that very moment. But as long as we've totally surrounded ourselves in this whitewashing, we're going to continue to have the results. But I know, sisters and brothers, right now, 100% without any doubt in my mind, that those of you listening and those of you who may hear this message in the future, wherever you may be, I know right now you can make that difference. So join the Holy Cryptic Church of the Black Messiah, Journey Home Group International. If you don't know where to go, join us. We'll help you get there. We know where we're going. We got a plan. We know how to execute it. You have nothing to lose because standing still produces no results. So join the Holy Cryptic Church. Go to www.journeyhomegroup.com. Ask how do you join. Text 646-479-9465. Say, I'd like to join. And we'll make sure you get to the right people. Thank you as always. It's been a wonderful day. Thank all of the guests. Namastu.
Namastu. Namastu.
Mastu.
How are you? Bonsoir or bonne nuit. Anyways, I'm just checking up on you. Hope you're fine.
I love you, Ray. It's JP on the track.
Come and get this loving girl, oh yeah. Want your body close to me, oh. At the end of the day, you are all I need, oh. Waiting if you do to prove myself to you, to you. Oh you. Baby, it's you. It's you. Said I don't want to, if it don't be you, yeah. Said I don't feel to, if it don't be you, yeah.
I don't need to try. My love language you apply. Without you, I can't do. My head hurts and my heart yearns for you.
See the vibe, I want you for the night. Oh, vibe is right, I gotta make you wife. Oh, vibe, I need you in my life. Oh, yeah. You. Oh, you. Baby, it's you. It's you. Said I don't want to, if it don't be you, yeah. Said I don't feel to, if it don't be you, yeah. Said I don't want to, if it don't be you, yeah. Said I don't feel to, if it don't be you.
Hey, I just want to tell you that I'm grateful you're my friend. I'm grateful that I came across you. I'm grateful that I know someone as amazing, sweet, and special as you. I just want to let you know that I'm glad that you're in my life and I'm grateful.
It's JP on the track.
On the beats.
Kitoko sounds.